Hello, Darren again. Let's get some relief from a heavy mood. Okay, we've all been there. It can be more overwhelming for some than others, but there's 4 things we're going to do today, and that is understand the problem, understand the solution, understand the pathway, and practice the technique. Okay. Now this is probably one of the protocols that I'm most excited to share. And I know that might sound weird, especially if you are suffering from a heavy mood. Now the reason I've differentiated it from depression is that the depression is just a name, okay? But what we're doing in non-ordinary living and in the Minutes to Mastery protocols is we are describing the experience of a heavy mood in mind and body. Okay, so that's what I mean by understanding the problem. We want to understand the energetics of the problem, and that's why we've used the word heavy. Okay, so that sense of compression and disconnection, because that sort of, we don't just drop straight into depression. And this is what I mean by understanding the pathway. So we kind of go, there's a pathway into depression, just as there's a pathway out. And that's the whole premise of Minutes to Mastery, is that if we understand the problem, we understand the pathway in, then the same pathway that takes you there can bring you back. Now, none of this is stuff that I've read in a book. Or learnt in a course. I'll say that through all of my protocols, and I'll probably say that to end of my days. All I've done is used awareness, mind-body awareness, to just notice what's happening and to notice the pattern. That's what I found, is that we can feel these sensations and these experiences, and then if we describe them, it's describing a pattern, and then we can see that with the mind, okay? So I've got here that moods stabilize. And so when we're in a good mood, it's a stable state. When we're in a bad mood, that's also a stable state. It just may not be the one that you want. When we're in a heavy mood, that is very stable. In fact, it's very hard to move at all. There's a good reason for that. What I've found is that preceding the heavy mood and preceding things like depression, because I've suffered from depression, had suffered my whole life, okay? I was what's known as, back in the day, manic depression. And so my moods would get very heavy and I would disconnect from the things around me. And that's the key, because preceding that was always, I couldn't quite succeed in whatever it was, and either my thoughts would overwhelm me, because I'm was predominantly a thinker, or my emotions would overwhelm me, or both, okay? And that was all due, so all we're doing here with the heavy mood is correcting, okay? We're balancing, because this is the state we end up in this lowered state, in this compressed state. And so the key word is expansion. So anything that I talk about, anything that I give you, the techniques that I give you in the written guide, it's all around this key word, okay? And if we can understand that all we're trying to do is simulate this state, then you can come up with your own techniques. You can start to come up with your own interpretations of this. Something as simple as breathing is just expanding. You don't have to go and do a course on it. Putting your awareness out there, expanding your awareness, expanding your vocabulary, expanding your perspective. Anything that simulates expansion is going to lift a heavy mood, because we are coming out of this compressed state. So we're starting to understand the solution. So we understand the problem is that there's this, if we describe the problem as this heaviness and there's this compression, okay? So the path that takes us there into this lowered state is the same path that can bring us out of it. Now, I came upon this quite by accident. Well, it wasn't really by accident. But like I said, I used to suffer pretty harshly from depression, and I'd go all right for a little while, and I'd have all these techniques to keep my mood, faking it till you make it, but none of that stuff works. Think positively. None of it works, because you try to get from here where you are. Okay, this is where you are. Think positively. What's the pathway? Okay, you've got to understand, if you are up here, you've got to understand how you got there first, and then you just follow that path back up. But if you try and just think positively, it's exhausting. Okay, and that's where we get these sensations from, is our system is compensating for a lack of alignment. So we have disconnected from our inner self, and to begin with, because that energy has to go somewhere, it'll either go into our thoughts, or it'll go into our emotions, or it will go somewhere else. And the pressure and the tension and the stress we feel is our system trying to compensate for that and bring us back into alignment. But we fight it because we think that there's a problem, or we think that we're broken. We're not. It's just our system is out of alignment. It's out of whack, one way or the other. So in Minutes to Mastery and all the protocols, all we're doing is corrective movements to counteract that compensation. Okay? And the way we do this, first and foremost, is with binary. Every value system has a binary. Light, dark, good, bad, heavy, light, again. Okay? So, heavy mood, we're lowered. And so what we want to do is balance that with lifted. Right? So, we're in our body and we're right down to the ground, we want to start to come up. Okay? We want to start to expand. In the written guide, that's what we do. One of the technique that I give you is very simple, because you can use it when you're out and about. If you're just looking for areas that are compressed and heavy and tight, but you're also looking for areas that are even just slightly lighter. And then you just focus, you bring your awareness to that area that's lighter and more expanded, and you just bring your awareness to that, and then back to the compressed, back to that. And so you're learning the pathway out. Okay? How this came about, I was, at the time I had bad back, and I was trying to deal with that. So I was starting to explore this idea of energy and mind-body awareness connected to that energy, and how to navigate that. And so I was just watching these patterns, and that's what I would do. I would just watch the pattern. I learned to describe it, because if you've done the energy balls video, which I hope you have, we learn to, instead of naming energy, we learn to describe it. And it's that description that gives us an understanding of the problem. And then if we understand the problem where it is on one side, we can understand the binary, and then we can simulate that binary state. We can simulate expansion in different ways. So I was driving a school bus, and so I had mornings and afternoons. I had my days free if I wasn't doing other things. And so I came home one day and I was in a heavy mood, and I was like, right, I've got to try and figure this out. And I was like, right. And I'd been working with this idea of the path that takes you there is the path that can bring you back. So I wouldn't recommend trying this, okay? I kind of knew what I was doing, and I trusted that I could, if I let myself go into it, which was what I was going to do, I could get myself out of it. I almost got stuck, but you don't need to do this. You just need to understand the problem, the solution, the pathway, and to simulate a technique. And then you just use your body and your mind together, okay? But we'll get back to that. So I allowed myself to sit at the table and go into the depressed state, and I followed the path down, and slowly I went over until I was just in a catatonic state. At that point I was like, oh my God, this is what a catatonic state's like. You can't move. You are literally, your system is shut down and you are stuck. And I sat there for about an hour. And then just out of, like, my finger moved. And I was like, whoa, that was weird. That actually, I could feel that. And then it moved again and slowly started to move. Just the tiniest little movement. And because my awareness was, I was connected to the movement. My awareness connected my mind and my body. And I could feel. And I was like, that feels good. And by that, I don't mean like, woohoo! It just, there was an aliveness to it. Same as when you do the energy balls, the things that you like. That's what it was. It was this presence. There was this aliveness, this connected awareness. And I'd studied anatomy and physiology beforehand. So not long after this, I made the connection. And what was happening was that it was the dopamine reward system. The dopamine reward system at its core is how we learn. So when we're younger and we're learning to walk, how we learn is we watch other people walk, and that walking is a pattern. And all we're trying to do is duplicate that pattern, watch it, and then enact that pattern. And so, we stumble at first, but once we get the pattern, our body rewards us with dopamine, because the dopamine goes into the system and tells the nervous system, we want to strengthen all those neural pathways so that pattern is stable. Okay? If we stumble or fall, our body releases another chemical. I think it's cortisol, but don't quote me on that. Doesn't matter what the name is. But that chemical shears and tells the nervous system, we don't want that pathway. That pathway is not part of the pattern. All right? So we learn the pattern. And that's what was happening here. Except instead of thinking ahead, the pattern was just, because I'd made the connection, just that simple connection, and that's all we're trying to do, I'd access the neutral state in between, and that connection created a feedback loop. And I just allowed movement to return. So I was coming back up out of it. And I just allowed it to emerge naturally by doing nothing else than staying here and allowing it to emerge naturally. It was my system doing what it was designed to do. I just got out of the way, okay? And I just allowed that expansion to happen. And all I've done, so like I said, I've never read books about this stuff. I've interpreted it in my own way. So from there, it just kept going. And I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was younger. I don't associate with it anymore for different reasons, but procrastination was my A game. So many things I started and never finished, and success for me was forget it. But it was because my system wasn't aligned. I wasn't really sure who I was, why I was here, and what I was here to do, which is what I call your energetic signature. It's within you. But the only way to connect with that is through the neutral state. But because I didn't know this, because we don't know this, I was stuck in the patterns that had formed around me. So once I found that balance, my actions naturally emerged. Like I like a clean house, but I've got to clean the house. Your system collapses because it's not aligned with anything, and so that energy has to go somewhere, and so it normally goes into thoughts or feelings or emotions, and then we have to compensate. Our system compensates for that, and that's the effort. Okay, that's all the stress and the anxiety and all the feelings and everything is around your system trying to compensate. It's not the thing itself. That's the wrong way to look at it. If you can just balance, okay, and use corrective movements to do it, which we are simulating in these different protocols, you will naturally find balance. You will naturally find access to the neutral state, and then your system emerges naturally. So I started to do the dishes, and I started to clean the house, and this was all from a catatonic state. okay? And then I just kept going with it. And that's where I learned to go from corrective movements, okay, to stabilizing the neutral state, connecting to, and this is all stuff that we learn in the neutral workshop, and I'm not trying to push that on you, okay? If all you do is this, you're going to get relief, okay? This is just moving from relief to stabilization. And then the community is all about exploring what happens when we connect to this state and we connect to our energetic signature and we align everything with that. What happens in this emergent nature of any system? When the system is aligned and functioning properly, the energy flows through it, and you get the result of that depending on what the system is. So everyone has their own unique system, and if you align with it and allow it to express itself, you get the potential state. But you can't do it unless you're here, because that's where the connection's made. All right. So all we're doing with the protocols, and with this one in particular for the heavy moon. So in the written guide, you're given one specifically because it's very easy just to tune in on your body. You don't have to think too much, and look for areas that are tight and compressed. And so we're getting used to that, moving from the compressed, tight to expanded, loose. Okay, and then we just simulate that in everything that we do, because the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. But you don't have to force or use any kind of effort whatsoever, okay? With the body, all we're doing is opening, okay, and rising. And this is why exercise works, okay? I know it might sound stupid, but doing the squat, what's it doing? Okay, we're compressing, we're lifting and rising. There's no effort involved. All we're doing is putting awareness on, and I became a personal trainer because I wanted to put this work into physical practice, and I opened a mind body fitness studio, and I showed people how to move using these principles. It's like, just be aware of the pathway that goes into the movement, and then just follow that pathway back out. Let it emerge. And there was no effort involved. It was just movement based on this energetic emergence. Okay? That's all this is. Goal is neutral. So we open and rise with the body. Anything that you can come up with your own techniques. It doesn't matter. Anything that simulates this opening and rising, anything you do, draw. Okay? Go from tight circles. So here, look. Feel this. Feel it in your body. The feeling state is the key. Everything that we do here, feel it. So can you imagine, feel this, getting tighter and tighter and tighter. You can feel it in your body. Now, imagine if you went, feel it, feel it, feel it. There's another one. All this energy in here. It's tight. Now, expand it. Focus on there now. Feel that. Okay? Moods stabilize. So with our mind, we just want, and this is what being in the moment is. We just want to allow the next thing to come. Don't try and do anything. Just allow it to come out naturally. What do I mean by that? You've heard of inspiration, yeah? Everyone thinks that that's some big thing. It's not. You think of it like a wave. So I don't plan my day at all. Okay, yes, I have to get up and go to work, but I don't plan that. That's a decision that I've already made. I know that I have to get up at a certain time, but I don't. As soon as the alarm gets off, I don't jump straight up. I wait for a wave to come. And I first learnt this when I because of my back injury, I had to exercise and I had to get up early to do it. And so I would wake up, and I'd already even practiced the movement of getting out of bed, but I would sit there and I'd wait for a thought to come in to get up, and I just went with that. I became aware of the pattern, I connected to the pattern with mind and body, and I just went with it. And that's what happened when I went from this. I just looked over and was like, oh, that needs to move. And I just got up, I took that, I moved it over there. I was like, oh, the dishes need doing. Okay. And I just felt, I went with this expanding and contracting and moving this way and that way, and forwards and backwards. Okay? Balance. So we move from compensation, correctional movement, stabilization, neutral state. Okay? Like I said, if you want to go further, come and do the neutral state. You can go and do, you can just stick with this protocol. You'll get relief if you stick at it. Okay? You can go and do the other protocols. The whole bundle's $34. It's nothing. I've made it as cheap as I can. The neutral workshop, $34. I said it basically covers the cost of the platforms that I use. And I've done that on purpose because this is kind of all you need. If you want to take it further, then come and join the community. Simple as that. If you don't, you can make this, sometimes this is just enough. This is all people need. Just to give them a little bit of space so that they can reconfigure where they are, reorient. It's all about orientation, okay? Then you choose from this point, the stable orientation point, you then choose the direction you want to go in. If you want to learn more about that, then yeah, come and join the community, okay? Any questions at all, please email me and I will do my very best. But keyword, expansion, all right? Balancing, in between low, lift, all right? Use your body, that's what it's there for, to simulate these movements, simulate that expansion and contraction, and then use your mind to do the same. So the feeling that you get from here, you just want to carry that into everything that you do. And so you just want to move in that stable state, okay? That's all it is. You're creating this feeling state, and then you're just moving within that. Don't try and go beyond it. Don't try and jump ahead and go, all right, what have I got to do now? And lose that connection. Stay with the connection. It will stabilize. You will more and more be able to access this state, not that you need to name it that, and then go from there, right?